Hey, what's up? I'm Rafael di Furia, aka Rafi D is me, and I am back at it again on another beautiful Friday night. And this Friday night, I wanted to talk about the subjects kind of regarding freedom of movement, globalization, being an expat, dual citizenship. A lot of these subjects I generally talk about, but kind of wrapped up in a more global scale, rather than just about Italy. But towards the end of the video, I would like to bring it back to the question that I've been receiving and seeing pop up in various communities online about what's happening here in Italy, about the current government that's in place, and the discussion of whether Iure Sanguinis citizenship by descent will be done away with, or if there's going to be generational limits put on it. But I think this is part of an interesting conversation that's kind of happening on a global scale. Before we get too much deeper into this video, if you would like to see more content like this about moving to Italy, Italian dual citizenship, and living life abroad, please be sure to subscribe with that notification bell turned on. And if you could also give this video a like and share it with your friends, that would be greatly appreciated, as it does help out the channel. And thank you to those who have been helping out the channel. Without your help, this channel would not be able to exist and continue moving forward. And especially thank you to the patrons and people who've made private one-time donations, and for those of you who've purchased the NYAG gear to help make content like this possible. Really, it means everything. And if you would like to help out on a monthly basis, you can go to rafaeldifuria.com/Patreon, or to help out one time, you can go to rafaeldifuria.com/support. And for shirts, baby onesies, mugs, and more, for things like, where's posters, you can go to rafaeldifuria.com/NYAG gear, and all of the links are down below. Let's start off tonight's video with a country I have never spoken about on this channel, and I don't know if I'll bring it up again. But Thailand. There has recently been a change in how things have been going there for both expats and tourists alike in that country. There has seemed to be a shift towards the Thai people looking more at the luxury end of the scale and moving away from kind of the middle class and lower end travel and expat friendliness that they have had until somewhat recently. And on the immigration side of things, there seems to have been a crackdown recently. It seems as though in the Thai airports, they have recently introduced the biometric passport scanners, which keep much better track of who's coming in and coming out of the country. I've got nothing against that. I am totally cool with a country protecting themselves and know who's coming in and who's going out, and to have that kind of knowledge. But what that has done is that has changed the way things have been going there, because for a long time, it seems as though that the country has been quite relaxed about how long people stay, and even overstayers and people making a life for themselves there, even though they may not have necessarily had the legal right or ability to do so. There have been people who have created a life for themselves out in Thailand, even being there so long that they now have not only children, but grandchildren, and potentially even great-grandchildren, just because they have made their life out in Thailand, building up their finances and just building their life to just overall building their life out there. I've also been hearing news stories about people who have been trying to take their money out of Thai banks, or to purchase property from the money that's in their Thai bank internationally, but they've been kept from accessing their finances. And so while it seems as though the kind of middle class and below have been kind of almost pushed out of Thailand, that their finances have been kept there without them able to access it. What seems to also be happening in Thailand is that there has been a kind of boost in the real estate market, building these giant luxury high rises to become resorts, luxury apartments, and trying to go more for the higher end South Korean crowd, Chinese crowd, just the higher end luxury market, just kind of overall. And it seems as though they're looking to move away from that lower to middle end market, because one of the reasons why it has been so attractive to so many people is because of the prices there. But the prices, of course, with the popularity, have been going up. I'm going to assume it's based on supply and demand, and a little bit of let's see how far we can push things, which is something that happens, of course, everywhere. But this has led to a lot of people thinking about leaving Thailand, or not just thinking about it, but having to leave Thailand. I've been hearing a lot in expat communities about people thinking about moving to the Philippines or Mexico, places where the cost of living is still on the lower side, but And I'm not saying it specifically because of these countries, but anywhere in the world, even in Europe, if you see a place that is exceptionally low with the cost of living, you have to ask yourself why. You need to know. It would almost be irresponsible not to know why. In some places it could be because there's no jobs. In some places it could be because it's dangerous. One example, a family friend who married a woman from the Philippines was out there traveling with her. I believe her family came from the southern part of the Philippines, and they were on an island visiting family of hers, thinking about places to move and purchase property and live out there. What ended up happening was on their trip, they ended up in this one place, and he's of course a large white guy that would be hard not to notice in a place where there aren't so many. And because she has family there and just connections on the island, because this is kind of where she's from, they ended up hearing through the grapevine that there was a plan to make an attempt to try and kidnap him. So this is something that you don't take lightly. And I don't remember if either they had to leave early in the morning or kind of go in the middle of the night to make sure that this wouldn't happen. This was years ago and I was a kid at the time, but if I remember correctly, what they were saying was that they had heard, oh, that there's this rich American here. If they hold him for ransom, that they're going to make a lot of money. But that, of course, is not generally the case. But of course, with Americans, there's this perception that all Americans have to be extremely wealthy when that's very much not the case. And that's something that definitely can lead to other separate issues, something that I have definitely talked about in the past in other videos. But there's also another trend that I've been seeing where countries are not just closing down their borders, but they've been trying to open them up a little bit more, trying to welcome in as many people as are interested, offering all types of incentives. For example, Portugal offering seniors, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 0 tax on their pensions, which is huge because in a country like Italy, pensions can be taxed, even from abroad. I've spoken to a number of older Italians who have said, well, what are we doing here? Let's get over to Portugal. Let's go look at that. And I've known a couple who have gone and looked at property there to start and kind of think about making a life out in Portugal because it would be easier for them. And Portugal has also been very welcoming and open to migrants, whereas other countries have not been as welcoming. But then also talking more a little bit about what's going on in Europe, Brexit. This seems to be something which has gained a little bit more steam with the most recent elections that have happened. And this is not pro, anti. I'm not saying whether I'm for or against, and I'm not saying whether you should be for or against. In our opinions in this context, I would say don't matter because this is what seems to be. This is just the situation, and I'm not here to be an alarmist. I'm not trying to raise any alarms and talk about, oh, we need to be worried or no. This is just what is happening in the world right now. And you need to look at it and be real about what's happening and what you can do and how to plan around it, how to go within that system. This is another consideration to think about, that when you are going to a country, the situation, of course, can change very drastically depending on the government that is in power. So with this last election, if one party had gotten the majority, then it would have headed in one direction. If the other party got the majority, then it would have been a different direction. Another party would have been a different direction. It all depends on who's in power, and the last government could be different from the next government. I'm not specifically talking about the UK here. It could be any country where maybe one government makes these promises, they'll say they're going to do certain things, or even like the previous government that we had recently here in Italy was saying to UK expats that you will be able to stay here. This will not be a problem. But the most recent government that took over has not really kept up with that. They haven't said, at least as far as I've seen, I could be wrong, maybe I just haven't seen it. They haven't kept up that same kind of message to people. And even though these subjects are not exactly related, I feel as though they end up at a singular point that I have tried to make many times on this channel, especially for people who are of Italian descent or of a descent from a country that offers citizenship by descent, Irish, Macedonian, is that one of them? I forget. But anyway, whatever these countries are where you could become a citizen, or if you are residing in a country and you have permanent residency there and are eligible to become a citizen, then that is huge. That is so valuable right there, especially in a country like Italy, where citizenship by descent means that you're a citizen from birth. It's not a naturalization. It's not a thing that you become. It's a thing that you are born as. Just as if you're born in the United States, you're born with an American citizenship because you are just simply that. Italian citizenship is based on a different technicality. It's based on your lineage, not the location. And it's why I've been saying for years also that in Italy, we know the doors have been open, but for how much longer will they be open for citizenship by descent? Also, talking about the recent government change that's happened, the previous government seemed to be very interested in keeping the system as it was, to make no changes, whereas this new government seems to lean in a bit of a different direction and has brought up the new subject of, what is it, jus culturae, citizenship by right of culture, for people who have been here, who've been raised here, even if their parents were not legally here, or if their parents were legally here but their parents weren't citizens, that these children would have an easier path to become citizens. But there has at the same time been the discussion of getting rid of the iure sanguinis, citizenship by blood, citizenship by descent system, potentially introducing generational limits and other pieces along these lines. This is definitely something that has been spoken about for a long time, and recently I've been getting an uptick in the amount of questions that I've been receiving publicly and privately about what's going to happen. The thing is, I don't know, but here's what I do know. This has been talked about for a long time. Nothing's been done about it. If the iure sanguinis system were to be changed, then that would basically throw the whole system upside down, because so many different laws are reliant upon citizenship, which is reliant upon how citizenship is acquired. And as soon as you call iure sanguinis into question, then that throws into question the citizenship of every single Italian citizen, whether they like it or not, even the people who are fighting against it. So that would question literally everybody. But if you have already been recognized as a citizen, in theory, from what I have heard, you should be safe. I remember talking to a consular official a number of years ago saying, what's the situation? Once you're a citizen or recognized as a citizen, is that it? And they said, yeah, that's it. Like, you're recognized as a citizen from birth like anybody else in the country, and nobody can do that, anything about that. Nobody can take that away from you. Once you are a registered citizen, basta. But if you have not been recognized as a citizen, this is where the question really comes into play. And so if you're somebody who's been on the fence thinking about it, get started. Really, there is no time to waste, because this does take a long time. Even though I did things DIY, do it yourself, if I were to do it again, I really would have preferred to go with a trustworthy service provider. And that list of trustworthy service providers has gotten only smaller and smaller, in my opinion, as time has gone on. People have service providers that they like and that they don't like, and I have service providers that I just simply don't like because of how they work. But for the people who are waiting for their appointments, if there's a change in the law, then when you have your appointment, you're going to have to deal with those new rules. If you've already made your petition, it could be questionable. Like we saw with the update in 2019 with citizenship by marriage and citizenship by naturalization, that for the people who had applied prior to December, the question of whether the language certificate, if it would be required or not, was unsure. Even now, from what I've heard, there seems to be a question of if it is or isn't. Of course, it's better if you can have it, if you do have it. But I have heard also that for the people who did apply before, that they weren't required. But the new processing times have been applied to those petitions that are already kind of in process, so that these people who have applied have now a potentially longer wait. But if we're talking about citizenship by descent, this of course is a very different thing. If you apply in February, and February they also announce that there will be a generational limit, and you don't quite meet that, then that's going to be a question. And I don't want to speculate on that because I don't know how that would look. I would guess, though, that it could look something like the Irish system, where it would go through maybe up to the grandparent. In a very unlikely situation, maybe great-grandparent. But it's impossible to say at this moment. If you start limiting it to great-grandparents, okay, that's still a pretty big amount, a pretty fair amount of people who are of Italian descent who could still get Italian citizenship. If you limit it to grandparents, then this cuts the numbers immensely. If you cut it even to parents, then this very few and far between. Like in the world right now, it's estimated that there are millions of people who would be eligible for Italian citizenship by descent just in the Americas, between the United States and Argentina. I think, what was it, in Argentina, they have 40 million total population, but 26 million of those people are of Italian descent, or at least one ancestor that they can trace back to Italy. So that's huge. And the amount of those people who would be eligible for citizenship, I mean, I can imagine that it would still be a decent amount of people, that it would still be in the millions just in Argentina alone. But of course, it's hard to find those numbers, and that's something that would have to be speculated on. So definitely, if you haven't started, this is the time to do it, because if this government stays in power now that is currently here in Italy, then there could be a move away from how things have been working now. But if there's an election here in Italy and the party that was previously kind of, or the party at least that had the kind of more of a say over this part because of the coalition government, if that party would come back into power, then maybe there's the chance that maybe this whole jus culturae thing, if that's what it's called, citizenship, again, through culture, would be a different matter. Maybe they would not, because I'm sure that they would be against that, but maybe something like iure sanguinis would be a little bit more protected. With how things are now versus how things are going to be in a few months from now, it's hard to say because it's so unknown. But definitely in this world, it does seem as though there is that, it's either far off in one direction or far off in the other direction of closing down everything or trying to open up everything. But if you are someone who has that citizenship to a country, then you are protected. You have that ability to simply remain there just because of who you are and what you are and that document that you have in your hand. Even the people who say to me, oh, I'm getting Italian citizenship so I can move to the UK. It's like, what the hell? Like, what's the point? Like, I get it. I've thought about it myself, like to move to a different European country, but you're a citizen of Italy. You should move to Italy first to at least know what it's like here. Just because you have that passport, you do represent the country on some levels. You may as well know something about it. And yes, I do have very strong feelings about this. No, you shouldn't be required to necessarily, but I do think that there is an intrinsic cultural value to that. But of course, like, you got to do what's right for you. Like, if you're someone who's Italian and you're getting the Italian citizenship so you have the ability to work in Germany, then that's great. Explore Italy later in life. But I definitely do think that as an Italian citizen, you should know about your country. You should know what the country is actually like and not just on a vacation. And so if you're moving to another country like the UK, Germany, wherever you might be, Spain, Portugal, you might have uncertainty in the future, because while the EU allows things in a certain way now, there has definitely been some crackdowns on if you can't financially support yourself. I believe in Belgium that for X period of time, then they have the right to say that you've got to go back. And it's not, the freedom of movement isn't as free. And there seems to be an interest around the European Union to crack down on that. So just simply by having the Italian passport, yeah, you could be able to get to a place, but is it a place that you are wanting to settle? Is it a place that you are wanting to be in long term? Then I have to wonder, is it going to be a situation kind of like what's happened in Thailand, where your money might become inaccessible at some point? If you have an Italian passport or a Czech passport or a Polish passport, but you end up in Germany or UK, let's better example. The government there has said that EU nationals will be okay to remain there as long as they're there by a certain cutoff date. But what if this current government that's in power now, that just got voted in, what if they don't agree with that? What if they want to abolish that? They potentially could have the power to do something like that. Or what if your own country, what if you are Polish or you're Italian and Poland or Hungarian, and what if your country decides to leave the EU? What will happen to you in a European Union country? Will you be able to stay there? Will it be a pain for you to stay there? I know right now there are a lot of people from the UK here in Italy that are really concerned about what's going to happen. People who've been here for 20, 30, 40 years, and that just Italy has been their home, but they haven't moved to get the citizenship because they've always had their British passport, so why would they need an Italian passport? And I know people who are in almost the same position in Spain, Portugal, all over the place, because why would you need to if it's the EU? But even though there may be politicians that say, we will come to save you and we will come to help you stay as a citizen of the European Union, can they really make those promises? That's my question. In my opinion, it's a complete unknown, and unless you are a citizen of a country living from visa to visa, speaking as somebody who has done that, that gets stressful very quickly. And definitely when you're not knowing from one year to the next if you're going to be able to remain there, you're going to get to that point where it's like you stop kind of making attachments with certain people because you don't know if you're going to be able to stay there and have to meet new people and make new friends, and maybe stop going to certain social events that you would have otherwise gone to, or maybe you have a business and you would invest in certain things, but if you don't know if you have to leave the country or not, maybe you're not able to make those big, heavy investments or large financial investments that would tie you to that place more, because then you would just potentially have to just kind of leave it there and you wouldn't be able to take it with you, because that question over your head, having it remain in the back of your mind, it does create stress. And it's something I've definitely dealt with. It's something that I have friends that have dealt with and are dealing with. And it's really a very sad thing, because it makes it difficult to set those routes. Even if you're somebody who's looking to travel the world, it's nice to have the ability to say, oh, okay, I'll just stay here. I'll just make my life here. That you finally found that place that's really for you, but then you can't do it. That becomes very frustrating very quickly. I know I've skipped around in this video, and I hope that it has made sense of what I was trying to get to. This has nothing to do with ethnicity, race, whatever. This is just, let's talk about what's happening in the world, because it doesn't matter where you are, who you are, where you're from. There are these restrictions, but these restrictions on the global community are being tightened down. And it seems as though in places like Thailand, and there's one channel that's been popping up more and more in my feed recently, the Nomad Capitalist. I've been aware of his channel for a while and his company, and I've definitely been watching their videos for a while, but they've been popping up more and more in my feed. And it seems as though there are more and more citizenship by investment deals that are out there. And that, of course, seems to be catering to a certain crowd. And I mean, once you're talking about these citizenship by investment deals, it's like what? A deal is like $250,000, a few $1,000,000, depending on the country, that you have to invest in something. And whereas with Italy, it could be anywhere from a few hundred to a few thousand euros that you might end up paying in the end. A maximum I've ever heard was somebody, because of all of the mistakes and stuff that had happened, ended up being around 20,000 for a family of people, but it could easily be a few hundred euros for some people. But the 20,000 thing, that's extremely unlikely. That is like a one-off thing that I've almost never heard about in other cases. Normally a few hundred to a few thousand, generally under, say, about 6-ish. And that would be including the cost of a service provider, potentially. Of course, as always, this is an open conversation, so if you have any questions, or if you have anything to add or anything to say, feel free to leave that down in the comments section below. And if you would like to see more content like this about moving to Italy, Italian dual citizenship, living life abroad, and just generally being an expat, feel free to subscribe with that notification bell turned on. And if you could give this video a like and share it with your friends, that would be greatly appreciated, as it does help out the channel. And if you would like to help out the channel in another way and to help make content like this possible, you can go to rafaeldefuria.com/Patreon to help on a monthly basis, rafaeldefuria.com/support to just help out once, or rafaeldefuria.com/NYAG gear for shirts, baby onesies, mugs, and more, like posters with Italy-centric designs that all go to help make content like this possible. So thank you to those of you who have been helping And of course, as always, I am Rafael de Furia, aka Rafi D is me. Thank you for joining me on another beautiful Friday night. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend, a wonderful week ahead of you, and enjoy your holiday season. For those of you who celebrate Merry Christmas or Happy Hanukkah, whatever your holiday may or may not be, I hope this time of year is happy and joyous and that you stay quite warm. Anyway, I look forward to seeing you all next Friday night. Have a great one. Later.